You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, and you're not. At the end of this show, you're going to get the interview that I did with John Vandemoer. He was Stanford University's sailing coach during Operation Varsity Blues when that whole scandal was going on. I only had like 10 minutes with him. It actually turned into a little less. The interview was very different than other interviews I've done, but it was still very, very good. I'll say this though. There's one thing that you should know before the interview. Vandemoer mentions the name Rick Singer a lot. If you don't know who Singer is, he was really the mastermind behind the whole scandal. He was the one who jacked up the entrance exam scores. He was the one who bribed college officials. He pled guilty to 4 felonies. He hasn't been sentenced yet because he's going to testify at other people's trials. So all of that needs to get sorted out, but Singer's really the big bad wolf here. That's what you need to know. But you know that I'm gonna start with baseball. Specifically, White Sox Astros. A really infuriating game. I mean, look, no one hates the Astros more than me. I'm rooting for the White Sox hard in this series. I think everyone outside of Houston is rooting for the White Sox hard in this series. Maybe big Cubs fans are rooting for the Astros, but I'm sure there's at least one Cubs fan that doesn't want to see the Astros win after what they did. Like, one thing about the sign stealing that we didn't really talk about, but we really should have, is these are really talented players. Did they really need that advantage? It's like, depending on how you feel about guys like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, they didn't need an extra advantage. They were dominant. So why do what they did? I mean, this Astros team, from the top down, is stacked. Their 7-hitter, Kyle Tucker, is good enough to be a 2, 3, or 4 hitter on most teams. You know, you've got to give the devil his due. This Astros team is chock full of playoff performers. Yuli Gurriel had a really good playoff run in 2019. Jose Altuve won the pennant for the Astros that year. Carlos Correa is a really good playoff performer. Alex Bregman has series where he really steps up. Michael Brantley's a really good playoff performer. In limited time, Kyle Tucker has shown that he's a really good playoff performer. Same thing with Yordan Alvarez. Even a guy like Lance McCullers has shown an ability to step up with the lights on bright. I mean, I've got to be fair. No one hates the Astros more than me. They're probably the second biggest rival that the Yankees have, behind only the Red Sox. And even then, for the longest time, the Astros rivalry had more juice. The Red Sox rivalry has more juice now, but that's just because of what happened on Tuesday. We're going to forget about that in a few months. We're never going to forget what the Astros did. But I've got to be fair. This Astros team is good. It's a really good team. I don't want to overreact to one game. But the fact that they were able to tag Lance Lynn for 5 runs in under 4 innings, that's really impressive. I mean, I'll say this. I was really surprised that La Russa let Lynn go as much as he did. I mean, you could tell that Lynn didn't have it. He had given up 3 runs over the first 3 innings. He gave up a single to Jake Myers, who most people wouldn't know if he came to their house and delivered them a pizza. Then he gave up a double to Jose Altuve. It's second and third, 2 men out at this point in the 4th inning. I understand that with 2 men out, you want to give Lynn the chance to just get one more batter out. And I'm not a big believer in the 3rd time through the order thing. In the playoffs, I sorta kinda understand the logic. You'd rather pull your starter too early rather than too late. Every manager in the postseason really loves to trot out reliever after reliever after reliever. Gone are the days of starters going 7-8 innings in the playoffs. I disagree with that, but that's just the way the game is going right now. I don't like it, but there's not much I can do to stop it. So, I understand the 3rd time through the order stuff. Again, I don't think you're beholden to it entirely, but I think it's something you need to be cognizant of, especially in the playoffs, when every run is so important. I mean, I understand that Brantley didn't hit a ball out of the infield in his first 2 times up, but you've still got to respect who Brantley is. Brantley was an all-star this year. He hit .311. Really good playoff performer. With the Astros, he's a career .311 playoff hitter. I was really surprised to see La Russa take that chance. And then Brantley hits the 2 RBI single, and it's turn out the lights, forget about it, the White Sox aren't coming back from 5-0 down. You know, I understand trusting your ace in the playoffs. It's an old school mindset. La Russa's an old school manager. Okay, I get that. I get wanting to do that, but at that point in the game, you're down 3-0. Runners at 2nd and 3rd. I just don't understand why you take that chance. why wouldn't you have a lefty warming up? A guy like Crochet or Bummer, why wouldn't you have him ready? That right there was the turning point of the game. You're down 5-0 after 4 innings. You've made Lance McCullers look like the second coming of Nolan Ryan. That's not going to work. That was just a bad job by La Russa. I like La Russa. And I understand the logic of trusting your ace. But after having already given up 3 runs to see runners on second and third, shut the door there. 3-0 is a manageable deficit. That's a safe situation. 5-0, that's tough. I mean, give McCullers a ton of credit. He went 6 2/3, only gave up 4 hits. The guy threw 104 pitches. This may be the only game in these playoffs where a starting pitcher throws over 100 pitches. Am I being hyperbolic? Maybe. But you're not going to see it a lot. I like that Baker gave him a lot of leash. I understand when you're up 5-0 after 4 and 6-0 after 5, you have that flexibility, but still there are some managers who, once they get through that third time through the order, that's it. I'm gonna be on guard. Baker gave McCullers a lot of leash. McCullers gave up 3 singles in the 7th inning before he got pulled. That was the right thing to do by Baker. Job well done by him. One thing that I was kind of surprised about was to see Kendall Graveman and Ryan Presley used. You're up 6-0 through 7 innings. Why wouldn't you bring in your low leverage relievers? You want to tell me you want to keep the score at 6-0? There's room for error there. I mean, why would you use Graveman and Presley if you don't need to? This may be the only game in this series where it's not a close game. And you know that there are some relievers who, once they're used a ton in the postseason, after having already pitched like 60 or so games in the regular season, they have a tendency to fall off. Limit the workload. I mean, maybe today's game is a blowout, and you can avoid Graveman and Presley, but if it's a 1-run game, you're going to want to use those guys. They may not be as sharp as you'd like. It's hard to really get on Baker, though. You can get more on La Russa, but it's just one game. I understand the best of 5. One game becomes that more meaningful, but there's still time for the White Sox to come back. If they win today, it's down to a best 2 out of 3. That's how Chicago needs to look at it. Moving on now to Red Sox Rays. There are some players who transform from really good to great in the postseason. Madison Bumgarner and Orlando Hernandez are 2 of those guys. Randy Arozarena is another one of those guys. This kid is nothing short of sensational. The guy dominated all throughout last year's postseason. He hit 10 home runs against the Yankees, Astros, and Dodgers. He won ALCS MVP. In the postseason last year, he hit .377. He had a .442 on-base percentage. The guy was setting records left and right. But there was a little bit of you that thought, maybe, just maybe, this isn't sustainable. Yes, you need to respect what Arozarena did last year under the bright lights, the entire baseball world watching, but it came on the heels of a 60-game season. There is that asterisk there. It's just that simple. So maybe you thought Arozarena would have a good postseason this time around. Did you think he'd do what he did last night? If you say yes, you're full of it. Arozarena became the first player in baseball history to hit a home run and steal home in a postseason game. The last time that happened was Game 1 of the 1955 World Series. That's the iconic moment where Jackie Robinson steals home and Yogi Berra, until the day he died, maintained that Robinson was out. That's an iconic moment. Arozarena stealing home is now an iconic moment. I mean, I'll tell you, we're only 3 days into this postseason. We've already had 2 iconic moments. The Chris Taylor home run and Arozarena stealing home. We love iconic moments on this show. The fact we've already gotten 2 in this postseason bodes really well for the future. I mean, I don't want to say that this is going to be a postseason for the ages, but 2 iconic moments in the first 3 days of the postseason, that's a really good trajectory. Again, this was another game where you could turn it off early. Once Randy Arozarena hit his home run and the Rays went up 4-0 after 5 innings, you had a sense that the Red Sox weren't going to come back. I mean, once you saw JT Chargois come out of the bullpen, it's like, okay, here come the shutdown Rays relievers. The Red Sox aren't going to score 5 runs off of these guys. The game's over. Here's an interesting anecdote, though. None of the 4 pitchers that Kevin Cash used yesterday, Shane McClanahan, JT Chargois, David Robertson, and JP Fireeisen, were on the Rays opening day roster. And they just shut out the Boston Red Sox, a team that put up 6 runs on Tuesday to eliminate the Yankees. That is absolutely insane. The depth that the Rays have and their ability to constantly develop pitching is second to none. Like my father said, if the Yankees are going to blow things up and they're going to fire Cashman and they're going to fire Boone, look to the Rays to replace those guys. There's logic there. What the Rays are constantly able to do defies all logic. They trade Blake Snell. They go on to win 100 games. Tyler Glasnow's out for the year. They have the best record in the American League. They come out on top of a really tough AL East. A division that had 4 90-game winners. It is nothing short of incredible what the Rays are able to do every year. And now the Red Sox are behind the 8 ball. Forget being down 1-0. That's not what I'm referring to. You now need length from Chris Sale. Can Sale give it to you? The answer is yes. But if he doesn't, and Alex Cora showed that he has a really quick hook. He pulled Eduardo Rodriguez after he only got 5 guys out. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. The guy gets Mike Zunino to fly out to center field. He strikes out Kevin Kiermaier. That's it, Erod. You're done. Let's go to Garrett Richards. And this wasn't even an opener strategy. You're not going to use Erod as an opener. He was your third best starter this year. That wasn't by design. You bring in Garrett Richards. Okay, he gets Randy Arozarena to ground out. If Richards can give you some length, you're only down 2-0 at this point. It's very possible that you can come back. But then you go to Nick Pivetta? Pivetta was the guy who gave up the 2 home runs. Pivetta was the guy who walked Arozarena and gave up the double to Wander Franco that put Arozarena at third. And the answer to the trivia question, who was on the mound when Arozarena stole home, is Josh Taylor. Very smart to steal off a lefty. A lefty has his back to third base. No way is Arozarena going to steal home. That's just something that's not even in the darkest recesses of your mind. But because Taylor has a slow delivery, and he really wasn't paying attention to Arozarena saw an opening. The Rays are up 4-0 at this point. Their bullpen needs to get 6 more outs. You're feeling really good about your chances. You know what? Let me increase my postseason legacy. To be mentioned in the same breath as Jackie Robinson for time immemorial, that bodes really well for his legacy. But going back to my original point, now you need Sale to give you length. He can do that. He's the best starter on the Red Sox. But now you're in a position where if he struggles early, you'd probably need to go to Richards to give you multiple innings. Every time that he went multiple innings this year, he had at least 3 days rest. To ask a starting pitcher to come out on no days rest and say, hey, I need multiple innings, that's tough. That's really, really tough. For Boston's sake, I really hope Sale can give them length. If he doesn't, then you may need to put someone in to just be the sacrificial lamb. Hey, you're going to go like 2-3 innings, and we're going to let you get shelled. Because you've still got to fight for a game 3. You can't exhaust your bullpen in advance of a game 3. It's not looking good for the Red Sox. If Sale doesn't deliver an ace performance, the Sox are in trouble. But now it's time to preview today's 4 games. I'll start with the earliest game. That's White Sox Astros. We have Lucas Giolito going up against Framber Valdez. I love out of the park baseball. It's one of my favorite games. Giolito, in my game, became an ace. I mean, he won the pitching Triple Crown. So I made a blockbuster trade to get Giolito. I've won back-to-back World Series with him. What does that have to do with anything? Not much, but I really wanted to tell you about it. Giolito throws 3 pitches, fastball, changeup, slider. He likes to go high with the fastball, get you guessing with the changeup, and then get you swinging through the slider. One thing that I've noticed about Giolito is as the season progressed, like through the second half of the season, he started throwing his slider to lefties a lot more. That's a slider that when it breaks, it looks like you're swinging a sand wedge out there if you're a lefty. You try to golf it out of the park, it's just not going to work. Give Giolito credit for incorporating a slider into his duel with lefties. When you look at Framber Valdez, he's really a 2-pitch pitcher. He'll throw a sinker a ton, and then he'll throw a curveball. He does have a changeup, and he does have a straight fastball, but he really doesn't throw them a lot. It's more just sinker curveball. It goes top right to bottom left on your TV monitor. Both pitches do. The thing is, though, when that sinker doesn't sink, watch out. More often than not, it does break. Valdez is a good pitcher. He went 11-6 with a 3.14 ERA. But if you're the White Sox, you've got to be prepared to turn on those mistakes. He's not going to make a ton of them, but if he does, be prepared to swing. I don't mind being aggressive against Valdez. I picked the White Sox in 5 yesterday. Have to stick with it. If that's going to happen, the White Sox need to win today. I'll say this, I think Giolito's a better pitcher than Valdez. So yeah, I'll go with the White Sox. Moving on now to Braves Brewers. Give the Braves a ton of credit for overcoming the debilitating injuries that they suffered. Marcell Ozuna was supposed to be a big part of what they did this year. He only played in 48 games. Ronald Acuna Jr., one of the best players in baseball, could have gotten MVP consideration. He gets hurt halfway through the season. You're thinking, and I said this, there's no way that the Braves can withstand that injury. The Acuna injury will eliminate them from the playoffs. I think I said the Mets were going to win the NL East at that point. Maybe the Phillies, but I'm pretty sure I said the Mets. But give the Braves pitching a ton of credit. Charlie Morton, Max Fried, Ian Anderson, and Drew Smyly all had really good years. Their bullpen was fantastic. Will Smith had 37 saves this year. He actually led the majors in games finished with 60. Luke Jackson was an elite setup guy. He had an under 2 ERA. Tyler Matzek is lethal against lefties. He had a 2.57 ERA. AJ Minter was sensational last year. He had a .83 ERA. You knew that wouldn't be sustainable. You just didn't know by how much. I'll take a 3.78 ERA. That's fine. I have no problem with that at all. We talk about the Brewers as being a great pitching team. The Braves are right up there. They have really talented hitters. Obviously. Freddie Freeman would make a ton of sense as a Yankee next year. Ozzie Albies is one of the best players in baseball. Dansby Swanson hit 27 home runs. Austin Riley hit .303 with 33 home runs and 107 RBIs. The Braves lineup is really good, but it's their pitching that's really underrated. The casual baseball fan knows how good their lineup is, not how good their pitching is. But let me tell you, their pitching is really, really good. But it has nothing on the Brewers' pitching. Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, and Freddie Peralta comprise probably the best 1-2-3 in all of baseball. All of them finished with ERAs under 2.9. All of them pitched at least 140 innings. They all had at least 195 strikeouts. If you put them on a team with even a good offense, because the Brewers don't have a good offense. They didn't have a single player hit .290 this year. If you put those three guys on a team with a good offense, they may win 20 games. All three of them. I'm not being hyperbolic. If you put them on, say, the Houston Astros, they'd all have a chance to win 20 games. And their bullpen is absolutely sensational. Josh Hader is one of the best relievers in baseball. Brad Boxberger's a really good setup guy, as is Hunter Strickland. Devin Williams should be here, but he had that stupid injury celebrating too hard. What an idiot. That really endeared him to his teammates and Brewers management. But the Brewers can compensate. They have Jake Cousins. I like Cousins. Underrated pitcher. Went 1-0 with a 2.7 ERA. The thing is, though, who's going to step up for the Brewers? I'm not talking pitching-wise. I'm talking hitting-wise. Who's going to come up in a big spot, a runner in scoring position, and drive that guy in? Only 2 Brewers had over 60 RBIs this year. Avisail Garcia had 86, and Luis Urias had 75. The Brewers this year finished next to last in the National League in batting average. They were third to last in hits. They're really not a good offensive team. This is going to be a very low-scoring series. The over-under on this game is 7. Take the under. But I trust the Brewers pitching more than I trust the Braves pitching. As good as the Braves pitching is, and it is good, it doesn't hold a candle to the Brewers pitching. Brewers in 4. Moving on now to Red Sox Rays. It's Chris Sale versus Shane Bozz. I've spoken about Sale a lot. He throws 3 pitches. Fastball, slider, changeup. He can absolutely paint with the fastball. He can throw it high. He can throw it inside. He gets a lot of players looking at fastballs at the knees, or if they make contact on it, it's a weak ground out. He likes to go slider low, and the changeup he can throw low on the outer or inner part of the plate. He throws it against righties. It has a tendency to make righties dive outside the strike zone, though, I'll say that. Sale is very deceptive. He gets good velocity on his pitches, we know that, but what's underrated is his deception ability. Meanwhile, you look at Bozz. Here's a guy who's only making his 4th start in the majors. Yes, he was an Olympian this year, but to be only making his 4th start in the majors, and now starting in Game 2 of the ALDS, that's tough. He has a fantastic fastball. He blows it by hitters. He has a slider that gets righties to dive outside the zone. He has a curveball that he can bury below the knees. He's a good pitcher. He's a very good pitcher. He has a bright future. He was the 3rd guy that the Rays got in the Chris Archer deal. It was Tyler Glasnow, Austin Meadows, and Bozz. I understand he's a Rays pitcher. Very easy to say he's going to be great. This is what the Rays do. I totally get that. But it's impossible for me to pick the Rays in a game where they're starting a pitcher who's only making his 4th major league start. This is going to turn into a bullpen game. The Rays can win that way, there's no question. But I don't think they will. I think Sale is going to have a really good game. I think he'll go 6 innings. And I think the Red Sox will win pretty easily. Let's say like a 3-run game or so. It kills me to say it, but I'm picking Boston. Now on to the World Series. Dodgers-Giants. The first time ever that these 2 storied teams that have had some of the best players in baseball history, Mays, Koufax, McCovey, Drysdale, Bonds, Kershaw, Cepeda, Snyder, Marichal, Reese, etc., etc., etc. It's amazing that those 2 teams have never met in the playoffs before. Obviously 1951, but those counted as regular season games. It's like in 78. That was game 163, where Dent hit the home run over the Green Monster. When Thompson hit the home run off Branca, that was game 165. You know who the Dodgers are. You saw them on Wednesday. You see them in the playoffs a lot. You know who they are. You don't need me to go through them. You know the pitching's elite. You know the lineup is lethal. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by going through it. Instead, I want to talk about the Giants. A team that's been the best team in baseball through a sizable percentage of the season. But we haven't talked about why. Why are the Giants so good? There are a bunch of reasons. Buster Posey is having a renaissance season. He hit .304 with 18 home runs and 56 RBIs. I really hope he's a Yankee next year. Brandon Crawford is probably going to get MVP votes. He hit .298 with 24 home runs and 90 RBIs. Mike Yastrzemski hit 25 home runs this year. Chris Bryant came in and was really good with the Giants. He hit .262 with 7 home runs and 22 RBIs. It's a really good lineup. But their pitching is what takes them over the top. Kevin Gausman accepted the qualifying offer. He bet on himself, and boy oh boy, did he win that bet. He went 14-6 with a 2.81 ERA. Wouldn't surprise me if the Yankees made a run at him. Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about the Yankees because you're going to get the Yankees offseason preview tonight. Anthony DeSclafani had a really good year, 13-7 with a 3.17 ERA. Logan Webb went 11-3 with a 3.03 ERA. One of the best young pitchers in baseball. Alex Wood went 10-4 with a 3.83 ERA. Obviously, he knows the Dodgers very well, and vice versa. But that bullpen is probably the best in baseball. Jake McGee was insane. He had 31 saves. He had a 2.72 ERA. Tyler Rogers turned into a really good setup guy. He went 7-1 with a 2.22 ERA. Harlan Garcia went 6-3 with a 2.62 ERA. Jose Alvarez, who I wanted on the Yankees last year, went 5-2 with a 2.37 ERA. Believe it or not, I actually know a little bit about sports. Camilo Doval was really good. He had a 3 ERA, he went 5-1. Zach Littell went 4-0 with a 2.92 ERA. Dominic Leone went 4-5 with a 1.51 ERA. Tony Watson went 4-1 with a 2.96 ERA. Caleb Barragar went 2-1 with a 1.57 ERA. Jay Jackson went 2-1 with a 3.74 ERA. It's too many guys. The Giants are going to have to make some really tough decisions on who's on their roster and who isn't. I mean, they have really good position player depth. You'd like to carry a bunch of position players if you're a National League team because of a pinch hitting situation. But the Giants have so many really good relievers. It really complicates the decision. I don't envy Gabe Kapler and Farhan Zaidi at all. They have to make some really tough decisions. I don't know what they're going to do. This is going to go 5 games. This is the World Series. Whoever wins this series is winning the World Series. And I'm going to say that in an epic Game 5, a game for the ages, a game that we'll be talking about for decades, the Dodgers will come out on top. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. There was a pretty darn good football game yesterday between the Rams and Seahawks. The Rams won 26-17. They righted the ship after being embarrassed by the Cardinals 37-20. That was a big win for the Rams. This win, with the entire football world watching, really showed everyone that, yeah, we took our lumps against the Cardinals. There's no question, but make no mistake about it. That team that you saw against the Bears, Colts, and Buccaneers is the real deal. That's who we are. We are legitimate playoff threats. Matthew Stafford was really good. He completed 25 of his 37 passes for 365 yards. He got Robert Woods involved finally. He had 12 catches for 150 yards. Sean McVay divvied up the carries between Darrell Henderson and Sonny Michel. Henderson was better, 17 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown. But Michel was no slouch. He had 11 carries for 37 yards and a touchdown. I thought the offensive line was really good. I told you to focus on that yesterday. Andrew Whitworth, Rob Havenstein, and Austin Corbett really had good games. Defensively, you know that Aaron Donald is going to be dominant. Jalen Ramsey really disappointed. He did give up the touchdown to DK Metcalf. Metcalf was by far and away the best Seahawk yesterday. Had 5 catches for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. Going up against him in fantasy this week. That's not fun. But the D-line for the Rams as a whole was really good. And that's what Aaron Donald does. You need to dedicate so much attention to him that you forget about guys like Sebastian Joseph Day and Greg Gaines and A'Shawn Robinson. They all had really good games. Meanwhile, for the Seahawks, the big story there is the injury. Not Chris Carson. I told you he may be out. Alex Collins played. Looked a lot worse than I thought he would. He had 15 carries for just 47 yards. I thought Carson would tough it out, but everyone was cautious. Can't fault them for that, only they know the true extent of the injury. No, the big story is the Russell Wilson injury. As he was throwing, he jammed his hand against Aaron Donald's hand, and his middle finger looked bent in a way that I have never seen a middle finger. And I've seen a lot of middle fingers in my life. Pete Carroll called it a really bad sprain. I mean, Wilson's an Iron Man. He's never missed a start. Geno Smith is the first Seahawks quarterback not named Russell Wilson to throw a touchdown pass since September 25th, 2016. It was the fourth quarter of a blowout Seahawks win over the Niners. They were up 30-3 after 3 quarters. They went on to win the game 37-18. Wilson didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. Instead, it was Trevon Boykin. Remember him? Former Horned Frog. He threw a touchdown pass to Doug Baldwin. Once again, remember him? I mean, not for nothing, but I'll give Smith some credit. Here's a guy who hasn't started a game since he ended Eli Manning's Iron Man streak in 2017. Since the start of the 2018 season, he had only thrown 9 passes. And he comes in against a great Rams defense and doesn't look bad. Like, not for nothing, he threw a touchdown pass to DK Metcalf that made the score 16-14. Hold on, wait a minute. Is it Geno Smith's season? No, it's not, because Geno Smith isn't good. Okay, I've had the misfortune of watching Geno Smith. I saw every game he played with the Jets. He's not good. He looked good in limited time. Whoop-de-freaking-do. You know what? If Wilson misses the Seahawks' next game against the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, as bad as these Steelers have looked this year, The Steelers are going to win that game by at least 2 touchdowns. Come on. Use your noodle. The freaking Jets slander. Drives me nuts. Hey, look at what Geno's doing. Look at what Darnold's doing. Zach Wilson's going to be great when he leaves the Jets. Oh, shut up. For God's sake, can't you do one football analysis without trashing the Jets? Yeah, the Jets are bad. I know they're bad. Yeah, Darnold looks good. Yeah, Geno looked solid. Great. Fantastic. That's an anecdote. That's unnecessary. It's like my Giolino point earlier about out-of-the-park baseball. I didn't need to tell you that. I found it interesting. Everyone knows that Geno Smith is a former Jet. Everyone knows that Sam Darnold is a former Jet. No one finds that interesting. Enough with the Jets slander. Please. I get that they deserve it. Longest active playoff drought in the NFL, but just sing a new song. Please. They won on Sunday. They're going to win this Sunday. They just made a really good move in locking up John Franklin Myers. Enough. In case you didn't see it, the Jets did sign John Franklin Myers to a 4-year extension worth $55 million, 30.2 mil of which is guaranteed. This is a really good move for the Jets, an excellent job by Joe Douglas. JFM is having a really good season. He has a 74.7 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus. Last year he had a 71.5 overall grade. He already has 3 sacks. Would it surprise you if he got double-digit sacks? It wouldn't surprise me. This guy was discarded by the Rams. The Jets brought him in, gave him a chance, and he's turning into a really good player. That's an outstanding job by Joe Douglas. A great job by, realistically, Greg Williams and Robert Saleh in developing him. This Jets defense is full of guys who you wouldn't know if they came to your house and delivered you a pizza. Would you know Michael Carter II? Would you know JFM? Would you know Bryce Huff? Would you know Bryce Hall? All of those guys have Pro Football Focus grades over 68. You've got to give Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich a ton of credit for developing these guys. Not for nothing, but it wouldn't stun me if Ulbrich got a head coaching interview. That's how good the Jets' defense has been. I mean, I've been critical of Joe Douglas. There's no question. I wanted him to extend Marcus May, and he didn't. But with the news that May was charged with a DUI, and now he's going to be out for an extended period of time because of an injury, along with the Dewey, possibly, it makes sense to not extend May. You had to extend JFM, but Douglas did. I'll give him just under $14 million a year. That's more than fair. That puts him right in the middle of the pack in terms of highest paid defensive players. He's worth that. He's going to keep getting better and better. And I'll say this, it wouldn't stun me if in a year or two we said that he was the best player on this Jets D-line. That's how good he's been this year. He could be better than Quinnen Williams. Williams hasn't been great. And Foley Fatukasi's been really good, don't get me wrong, but JFM has the potential to be better than Fatukasi. Outstanding job by Joe Douglas. Alright, now it's time for me to make my 3 NFL picks. I went 3-0 last week. After starting the year 0-6, I'm 5-1 in the last 2 weeks. That's a positive trajectory. Let's keep it up. I like the Titans minus 4.5 over the Jaguars. With everything surrounding Urban Meyer, the dancing video, the owner coming out and saying he needs to be better, the rumors that he could go to USC. It looks like a dumpster fire in Jacksonville. Here's hoping that Trevor Lawrence can turn that situation around. But with DJ Chark out for the year, it's going to be really tough. I don't see how the Jaguars win this game or even lose by a touchdown. I think this is going to be a romp. It wouldn't surprise me if this was like a 3 or 4 touchdown game. That's how bad these distractions are. Give me the Titans minus 4.5. And I've got to go with the Jets plus 2.5. I know I did that in weeks 1 and 2, and I got burned, but I'm going to do it again. The Jets looked really good last week. They beat a really good Titans team. Part of the reason that they won was because A.J. Brown and Julio Jones were out for the Titans. The Falcons have their big receiver out in Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage, a player who would have really needed to step up, is out also. That bodes really well for the Jets. The Jets play well in London. They beat the Dolphins there. That was the last game that Joe Philbin was their head coach for. I really think the Jets are going to win. Forget plus 2.5. The Jets could have been minus 2.5, and I would have picked them. So plus 2.5 is very easy for me. And not for nothing, but being 2-3 after your first 5, after going 0-13 to start the season, that's progress. I'll take it. That's all I was looking for this year. Wasn't looking for the playoffs. I just wanted the ship pointed in the right direction. As for my other pick, I'm going to go with a pick'em. Broncos-Steelers is currently a pick'em. Ben Roethlisberger has not looked good. This should be his last year. Let him start the clock on his journey to Canton. Yeah, Roethlisberger's a future Hall of Famer. There's no question about that. But with him looking like a shell of his former self, plus the fact that Najee Harris really hasn't set the world on fire, I think the Broncos defense is going to feast on the Steelers. I understand that Teddy Bridgewater suffered a concussion against the Ravens last week. But according to Mike Kliz of 9 News, Bridgewater is expected to clear the protocol. He's gonna play. Maybe he won't be 100%, but he'll be solid. I like Bridgewater. I really, really do. All that means is you'll see more of Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Those two guys have looked really good this year. So give me the Broncos in a pick'em. So my picks are Titans minus 4.5, Jets plus 2.5, and the Broncos in a pick'em. All right, here's my interview with John Vandemoer. You're listening to the Jacob Valk Show. I'm Jacob Valk, and right now I'm joined by John Vandemoer, the author of Rigged Justice, How the College Admissions Scandal Ruined an Innocent Man's Life. We're just going to jump right into the interview. When did you know that you were in serious legal trouble?
Really, the first time I knew is when my court-appointed lawyer called me and told me what I was being charged with.
Okay. Specifically, what were you charged with?
So there, it wasn't specific charges. It was that they were going to charge me with bribery, which isn't a charge itself. It's kind of more of a legal technicality than anything else, but it was going to be bribery or some sort of bribery. Was what I was going to charge with, and that Rick Singer was going to witness against me.
All right. You used the bribery money, which you say you didn't know was a bribe, for Stanford's sailing program and not for yourself. Why wasn't that enough to prove your innocence?
Well, because, first off, yes, all the money was, all the checks were written to Stanford University and went to their development office for the sailing team. Really what it came down to was that the school was going to testify against me that I was being dishonest with them.
Were you being dishonest with them?
No, I don't think I was. At every point, and I kind of laid it out in my book, that at each point I kept going to the athletic department and telling them where the money was coming from and who it was. But Rick Singer has said I did it differently, and I don't have proof otherwise.
I mean, I'll tell you, I read your book. My mother read your book. She was really into this scandal when it was happening, and you come off as very believable. You come off as just a guy who was caught up in all this madness. I do feel bad for you. I will tell you, on a human level, I feel very bad for you. Have you heard other people say that they feel bad for you from a human perspective?
Yes, especially after the Netflix documentary when that came out. A lot of people reached out to me.
Okay, good. Do you think that loopholes already in place allowed for bribes to be considered donations?
Looking back at it with perspective now, yes, I do think there's a lot of loopholes out there. And really, maybe not so much loopholes, but there are ways for what I would call, a con man like Singer to be able to wiggle their way into an athletic department or a university and set up shop. And that's the part that has to be stopped.
For the people out there who aren't as familiar with the scandal, what exactly did Singer do to ingratiate himself within the program, and how can that be corrected in the future?
Well, for me, for my instance, that's what I can really talk about is that he entered in the athletic department to talk to me. He sought out me, and I believe was kind of referred to me by a basketball coach named Adam Cohen at Stanford, because Adam kept following up about Rick again and again. So there was some sort of connection in there. So, in Stanford's own admission, they said, look, Rick Singer was involved with 7 different coaches over 10 years, but no one ever blew the whistle on this guy. He's there for 10 years. There's 7 different coaches, but apparently I'm the only one that did anything with him. It seems kind of hard to believe. I think the big thing that a university needs to do is say, look, if there is some issue or they think there's something wrong, we need to set the alarm bells off, because clearly this guy's smart enough to keep changing his game until he gets what he wants.
Specifically, how would they prevent it so a guy like Singer doesn't get involved at all?
So I think the biggest thing is to separate financial, from money development from coaches, and have the development offices deal with all that. Sure, coaches should talk about their student athletes, their sport, the team, the season. Great, go out and do talks, but coaches should not be involved in any sort of ask or transaction of money at all. I think that's the safest way to keep them out of it.
Okay, I think that's fair. I agree with that 100%. How did the privileged lifestyles of these families contribute to their decision to commit these crimes?
You know, this is just my opinion on it, because I'm certainly not part of one of them. But I think that they felt like they could do whatever they wanted. They had been able to do whatever they wanted because money bought them a lot. And why not buy their kids into school as well? And it certainly is the case. I talk about in my book, too, that you look at the back door where parents are donating, getting names on buildings, and kids are getting into schools.
How should we view these students who got in fraudulently? Should we view them as willing co-conspirators, or should we view them as innocent people who didn't know what their parents did to get them admission?
You know, I think it's tough to paint them all with one brush. Certainly I feel that. I've always been painted with one brush. So I feel in what I've read and what I've learned about, which I don't know if it's the truth or not, that some students had no idea and some were fully complicit. And so I think it has to go by a case-by-case basis.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I think you should have been treated with a case-by-case basis. I don't think you deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as someone like Singer or Felicity Huffman or Lori Loughlin. Let me ask you this. What do you think the difference is between what people like Huffman and Loughlin did versus someone donating a ton of money, getting a library named after them, and then the admissions office says, you know what, we'll let this child of a wealthy donor into our university? Because there is a little bit of a double standard here.
Yeah, there's definitely a double standard, and it's kind of like a nuanced difference into it, that really in the cases where a coach took the money, then there you can see a clear difference, right? Like there's, you know, the coach is pocketing the money, not the school. You're defrauding the school in that way, in my opinion. If you look at my case where all the money went to the school and the parents donating, I don't really see the difference in that.
Right, absolutely. How has this scandal impacted your personal life? Have you been able to move on at all?
You know, it's taken a lot of time, but my wife and my kids have been spectacular. My family's been incredible, and it's made me realize a lot of, you know, how much I love and enjoy family and all the support they've given me. So I've been able to move forward. I have a new career, which I'm excited about, as being an engineer and a project manager, and I work for a small firm where we all kind of look each other in the eye and tell each other the truth and what we feel, instead of, you know, my experience at Stanford where I get an email to fire me after 11 years. You know, it's nice and it's refreshing, and I'm focused on my community around me and being part of that, and that's really all I could ask for.
I think that's the right way to approach it, John. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was John Vandemoer. His book is Rigged Justice: How the College Admissions Scandal Ruined an Innocent Man's Life. Thanks for listening. Here comes the outro. Thanks for the plug, Jacob from the past. It does mean a lot. You'll get my New York Yankees off-season preview tonight. Tuesday night, you'll get my NHL season preview. Thursday night, you'll get my New York Islanders season preview. 10 days from now, you'll get my NBA season preview. And the day after that, you'll get my Brooklyn Nets season preview. Here's my preview. The Nets will be better with Kyrie Irving playing home games than they will be without him playing home games. So please, 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 Kyrie, get vaccinated. Regular episodes of The Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon. On Tuesday, you're going to get an interview that I'm going to do with David Sumner, the author of a book on Amos Alonzo Stagg. Until next time, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.